I'd like to clarify something before we begin tonight with regard to the format. Tonight's meeting is not a debate. It is a forum. What that means is a representative from our league will be asking the questions tonight. The same questions will be asked of each candidate. If time permits, questions will be collected from the audience, and those questions will be asked by our facilitator as well. Without further ado, I would like to introduce our facilitator for tonight. Cheryl Dayhout is a longtime board member with the League of Women Voters, and she's chairperson of the Forum Committee, and we are very grateful to her for all her hard work in pulling this forum together tonight. Thank you. Cheryl.
Thank you, Chris. Good evening to everyone. Tonight we are here for the State Representative District, the race between Eddie Day Pashinski and Sue Henry. Each candidate will have a 2-minute opening statement and a 2-minute closing statement. Prior to the start of the event, we drew lots. Sue Henry won the lot, and she has elected to give her opening statement last. So Eddie will be giving his statement first. Each candidate will be given 1.5 minutes to answer the questions that are posed to them. Each candidate will answer the same question. They will rotate. So Susan will get the first question, followed by Eddie, and they will alternate back and forth. The responses are being timed by the league board members, so we ask our candidates to, please follow the time restrictions. Questions can be submitted by the audience. There'll be league representatives going around with index cards. You are welcome to write out a question on your index card. League representatives will be walking around. They will collect them. Please make sure that your question can be answered by both candidates, and they will be filtered for just to look for duplicates or to make sure that the question does apply to both candidates. So we will ask you to do that, and we will answer the questions as time permits. And then lastly, I would ask that you please hold your applause until the end of the presentation. Okay, so now 2-minute opening statement by Eddie.
All right, before we begin, just make sure that we have a good sound check. We're starting to get some feedback up here.
Uh-oh, that's me.
So,
can you guys
Scott,
hear okay?
Okay, we good?
Everybody good? Sound good?
First,
Okay.
Let me thank the League of Women Voters for sponsoring this. I'd like to thank Sue Henry for being here, and I also want to thank my family and friends and all of you for being here today. You're practicing the democracy that we all love by being here and taking an active role. Just let me give you a little background. I come from a half a double block in Nanticoke, Pennsylvania. My dad was a coal miner. My mom worked at J.S. Robb Shoes. We lived in my grandfather and grandmother's half a double block. My dad also served the United States Navy in the World War II Pacific conflict. The military discipline and the Christian values are the things that I live by. In that half a double block, I learned several things that I tried to follow through in my life. First thing is respect. Respect for others. Respect for the rule of law. Respect for the Constitution. Respect for this great country. Truth. Search the truth. Get the facts. Make your decisions based on the truth and the facts. Have a positive attitude. Work hard. Have courage to make the right decisions. Have courage to stand up and do the right thing. All of these things I learned in that half a double block. I try to follow those as I go on through my life. My wife and I taught our children those same values. I tried to emulate those same values as a teacher. And as a result, hopefully they know, always do the right thing, always work hard, and make sure you get the job done. But I'm going to tell you this right now, it's a privilege to serve because it's an honor that the people that I represent, trusted me with their concerns. So I do not see race, color, creed. I do not see political party. I see Americans. You are all Americans. We are all Americans. That's who I represent in the 121st District. It's a privilege to serve, and hopefully I'll be able to come back and continue. Thank you.
Sue?
I'd like to thank the League of Women Voters and Eddie as well, and I'm very happy that Cheryl is not Alex Trebek.
I am as well.
I'm Sue Henry. I was born in Lackawanna County. My father was a school teacher until he couldn't make enough money to be a school teacher. Then he went into private industry. My mother worked for years for the federal government for Toby Hanna Army Depot. She's retired. I have a brother who lives in Philadelphia, and I'm the mother of 3 children. I came to Wilkes-Barre to attend King's College because they had the greatest radio station in the world, and they still do. So I was educated at King's in Wilkes-Barre, and then I decided to stay here. It's been my privilege to live in this area for a very long time, since I was in college. I worked in the media for more than 3 decades. During the course of my work in the media, I got a great understanding of the issues where we live. I talk to people every single day, and I understand that there is some discontent with the way things are going where we live. Our area is so beautiful. It has the greatest history. Tony Brooks is here tonight. He taught me a lot of it. And I want to go to Harrisburg to help the people. I want to help the citizens who live here. People are hurting. Some are losing their homes, unfortunately, to some issues that certainly can be addressed by Harrisburg, but they haven't listened to your voices enough. So I want to be the voice of the people in Harrisburg. I don't want Harrisburg values. I want Northeastern Pennsylvania values, and I want to keep it that way. And I'd like to also commend you all for coming out tonight. To come out to debate like this, I have done them many times, I've moderated them, and I'm going to tell you, this crowd is one of the best I've ever seen, so you really care. Thanks for being here.
Thank you. Okay, the first question will go to Sue. What are your thoughts on opening primary elections to unaffiliated independent voters?
I have mixed emotions on that. The primary elections are for the parties, but sometimes the parties do weed everybody out and pick their candidate. And we've seen that happen in Pennsylvania a lot. And by the time the voter gets to vote in the primary, their candidate isn't even in the race anymore, statistically. The thing I worry about, though, is some kind of like stalking horse candidate that would be somehow entered into a primary and the opposition would actually pick the other side's candidate, if that makes sense to you. That's what I would worry about. I think that in that situation with independents, I know they're disappointed that they don't vote in the primary unless there's a ballot question, but I think that overall the system, the way it stands right now, is acceptable. Thank you. Ed?
We've had some discussions about this, and I've talked to many independent voters. They're really disgusted with both sides of the aisle. They can't seem to find either side that they can agree with enough to become one or the other. I've strongly recommended to them the way democracy works is you got to get involved. So if you're an independent, you have to figure out whether you're closer to the Democratic side or the Republican side. Pick a side, get involved, make the changes within that party. One of the dangers of a free-for-all in your primary is you can throw so many candidates out there, a lot of the good ones may get lost in the process between the Democrats and the Republicans. So it's still going to work its way through the process of debating, but I recommend anybody that's not happy, figure out which side you're closer to, join that party, get involved, and try to make the changes you want to make you feel comfortable staying in that party.
Okay, this next question goes to Eddie first. What are your thoughts on early voting in Pennsylvania?
I think we should make voting as easy as possible for our constituents. You know, lifestyles have changed so dramatically. People are traveling. People are working out of town. And to make it on a Tuesday, many guys, many people that are employed sometimes can't get out of work. I think we should make it as easy as possible. So we've made, I can't tell you, countless recommendations. 30 days, give everybody 30 days before to be able to file their ballot. 2 weeks, be able to file their ballot. Unfortunately, the guys on the other side of the aisle won't even entertain these, won't bring it up. To me, the bottom line is we should make it as easy as possible for our constituents to vote. It shouldn't be an impediment. And certainly the things that are transpiring in Georgia, or the attempt here in Pennsylvania to use voter ID as a way to suggest that there's impersonations, that kind of stuff is definitely illegal. It's totally un-American. If you're an American, you should have the right to vote, and we should make it as easy as possible.
Thank you. Sue?
When Election Day comes, you have 13 hours to get the job done. Voting is so important. People stand in line to get into the arena to get concert tickets for 6 or 7 hours. You can breeze right into the polls and vote. I've been there. I can tell you, I vote all the time. Absentee ballots certainly give you the option for early voting. I mean, if you think, oh my gosh, I can't make it, exercise the absentee ballot. My son is in the Peace Corps. He's in the Republic of Georgia right now. His ballot is coming back to America with a girl who's carrying it. If he can vote in the Republic of Georgia, I think we can get to the polls on Election Day. I don't see it as opening it up to make it more convenient. If you really want it, you go get it.
Thank you, Sue. The next question, we'll start with you. We'll mix it up a little bit from voting. What are your thoughts on prison reform?
Prisons are there to punish people who have done something wrong and need to pay a debt to society. That being said, once that debt is paid, I think that we need to be as open as possible in matriculating people back into society. Prisons are expensive. The cost of incarceration is probably more than the cost of an Ivy League school for a year. We need to look at alternatives, and the court system has been very good about this. They've had diversion programs for years that work. Not all diversion programs work, but those that do work are highly successful. I don't want to create a school for criminals and have somebody in prison that doesn't belong there and they learn to be worse. I think we just need to be very thoughtful about the expense of prisons, the diversion programs which are available and effective. We need to continue to seek solutions to rehabilitate people that can be, and have prisons to hold the people that absolutely cannot live in society.
Thank you. Eddie?
There's no doubt someone that creates or commits a violent crime needs to be placed in prison and receive just cause. But right now, about $42,000 to $45,000 per prisoner is what the cost is. So because of that cost, people have been analyzing the criminal justice system now for the last several years in an attempt to try to find the minor crimes that could eliminate them from the actual incarceration at let's say, for example, a Dallas SEIU or some of the other prisons, and put them into these other programs. Those programs cost far less, and they're rehabilitative. Obviously, it has to be based upon the degree of the crime, but the cost, again, is the driving factor for looking for other alternatives.
Thank you. Okay, Eddie, if you would answer this question first. What are your thoughts on the elimination of school property taxes? And if eliminated, what would you substitute as a revenue source?
Well, first of all, I would love to eliminate people's property taxes. What I've tried to do is find the balance with all of it. And there's no doubt that property taxes are a concern for everyone. Now, you're talking about municipality, county, and school? Are you talking about all of them, or are you just talking about school?
I was referring to school, but correct me, I believe, and we'll stop the clock
Well,
for a
because
second.
people
Go ahead.
get confused when they say, we're going to eliminate your property taxes. You pay county, you pay municipal, and you pay school taxes. The school taxes have increased over the years because of the fact that the state has not been funding your school districts at the level that it should be. So the local is burdened with that difference. There is no doubt that the bill that they're talking about right now is House Bill 76. And it sounds great, we're going to eliminate your property taxes. That's been going on for over 20 years. The sponsor of the bill, a representative, has said there are problems with that bill and it needs amendments. If the bill was appropriate, if it was ready for prime time, it would have passed years ago. When the Republicans had total control of the entire government in the state of Pennsylvania. Tom Corbett was governor. You had a vast majority of the House members, a major majority of the Senate members. They never even brought it up. Now, why is that? They didn't bring it up because it doesn't work. It doesn't work because there's two major independent studies that have been brought out to show that the numbers do not work. And if I'm allowed the time in here today, I can give you each different area that is incorrect with that particular flawed bill. I did, however, vote for 504.
Eddie, maybe you could cover that a little later on.
Is that okay?
To give
I'm sorry.
Sue a chance to
Missed
answer.
the stop sign.
Okay. Sue,
Sorry.
would you like me to repeat that question?
I am for the elimination of school property taxes. This is what I want. I've heard this for years from people. A little story, I was at a lady's house today. Her name was Judy. I said, Judy, how long have you been paying school property taxes? She said, since 1965. That's the year I was born. We need to do something. The Pennsylvania Taxpayer Cyber Coalition has worked tirelessly on this. The Independent Fiscal Office has vetted that bill twice and found it acceptable. If we want something to be done, we need to get it done. We need to make the system fair for everybody. Homeowners can no longer afford this burden alone. Everybody who benefits from the school system should pay for the school system, right? And we always hear about the homeowners. We need to go to an expanded sales tax, an expanded wage tax, and an expanded tax on certain services. I believe this can be done, and when I go to Harrisburg, I'm going to tell you what, it is job number one. In our counties, every 3 days, somebody loses their home to property taxes. It is time to do something. The time to talk is over. Eddie's had 12 years.
Thank you, Sue. Okay.
May I respond? Because there were some incorrect things
Well, we're
in
not
there.
really doing a debate. We're doing a forum, so you're welcome to interject a couple
Okay.
thoughts in your next 1.5 minute time frame. Okay, staying on taxes. And Sue, you get to answer this question first. What are your thoughts on a severance tax on natural gas? Excuse me, the natural gas extraction.
I understand. I got you. You know right now that there is an impact fee on the Marcellus shale drilling. Everybody knows that, right? I'm not telling you something you don't know. An impact fee means that when something is impacted, a fee is paid to fix it. In the areas where Marcellus shale is being drilled, there's damage to the roads and some other things, and that needs to be taken care of. With a severance tax, the one thing that I would worry is that it creates a stream of revenue that certainly needs to have a saddle on it so it doesn't disappear in the black hole of Harrisburg. That's what I'd be most concerned about. That being said, I would be willing to listen to arguments on a severance tax. I think that hearing from people in the industry and people in government, I think is fair. I don't think that there's anything wrong with having an open mind in this regard.
Thank you. Eddie?
Well, we've had many hearings on the severance tax issue. Right now, the people of Pennsylvania, are losing between $200 and $400 million per year, and that's before even the pipelines are open. Once the pipelines are open, you'll be losing a lot more than that. Look, We need balance in our taxes. We don't want a tax that's going to eliminate business, but we want a tax that's going to help our people. You want a source that will help with the property taxes? That's one. That could help reduce those property taxes. I made a vote on 504. That would have given the people in my 121st district up to $950 off of your property tax if that bill passed the Senate. We passed it in the House. The Republican Senate refused to pass that bill. $950 in 2016, $950 in 17, $950 in 18, you'd have $2,850 in your pocket right now. We can reduce it right now, and we can still work towards eliminating it. The second thing, Independent Fiscal Office identified at least 10 items that were inefficient with House Bill 76. I want to make sure that when you leave here today, you understand the truth about that bill. If that bill was ready for prime time, it would have passed a long time ago. Right now, the Republicans have the majority in the House and the Senate. They did not bring it up at all. They didn't even put it in committee. Now, why wouldn't they do that if everyone desires that sales tax to be eliminated? Why wouldn't they do that when a member of that party is pushing for that? When a member of that party is the sponsor of that bill? My time's up. I have plenty more.
Thank you, Eddie. Please. To be fair, would you please hold your applause to the end? Thank you very much. I appreciate that. We had two questions. The league had two questions, but I'm going to combine them into one because they talk about drugs. So, Eddie, to you first, two questions. What are your thoughts on legalization of recreational marijuana? And then also, what are your thoughts on the opioid drug crisis?
And what do we have, a minute and 30 seconds?
Yes.
Well, first of all, the drug crisis is an absolute scourge. It's a horror. We've had hearing after hearing, and I'm very happy to say that we've put a great deal of effort. The governor has done a great job. We have 45 centers throughout the state of Pennsylvania now that's dealing with all the folks that have this problem. We've also been focused in on the pharmaceutical company. That happened in the early 1990s, when the pharma company said opioids were okay. You're not going to get addicted. We can prescribe them. Ladies and gentlemen, that's been a scourge. People that had no intent to have opioids in their body because of an accident, an operation, or pain, they've taken these opioids and it's affected them. They become addicts. Once an addict, by the way, they cannot think normally. It's a disease. So not only have we had those 45 different centers, we also have a 24/7 hotline for anybody to now reach out if they're in trouble. A 24/7 hotline to get information on where they can get their help. They also were focused in on the medical group of people, on doctors. We've had to encourage them to expand their knowledge of these drugs because these drugs are definitely, 15 seconds. Good God. My point is the state has come up with 4 or 5 different things dealing with prescriptions, monitoring, so that doctors can't overprescribe. There's several other items that I could tell you about, but my time is up. Sorry.
Thank you. Sue?
On the recreational marijuana legalization, we've just enacted the medical marijuana in Pennsylvania. I think we need to give that business model a chance to operate before we do anything else. I'd like to know more about how it would work in Pennsylvania, the good and the bad, because everybody always talks about the good, but what about the bad? I was in a doctor's house up in Mountaintop, and he was firmly against it. I like to trust doctors, and I would like to know more. On the opioid crisis, this problem is so deep-rooted in the community where we live that we most certainly need to do something. We need to think about why people get into this situation in the first place. Often it's accidental, sometimes it's despair. We need to work fervently to keep young people away from opioids at all costs, and we need to provide comprehensive treatment that has efficacy to it. A lot of the treatment may not be long enough, and it doesn't take. I know it's expensive, but so are the prisons, as we've heard tonight. So we need to just keep our eye on what works best across the country. There's probably some models out there that could show us what is a better way to do this, because we're losing too many people, and it's wrong.
Thank you. Okay, we'll take a question that was submitted by the audience, and we'll start with you, Sue. What are your thoughts on legislation to control teacher strikes in Pennsylvania?
I would like to see legislation to ban teacher strikes in Pennsylvania. They are destructive to the people that are the most important in the school system, the children. We always hear it's for the children, except when we get to school strikes. That's not for the children. Those school strikes don't benefit children. Some of them have a hard time completing what they need to do to get into college. That's wrong. I would love to see a ban on them, because there is no legitimate reason in the world that these things cannot be hashed out while children are attending school. It's also inconvenient and expensive for parents who have to put kids in some kind of alternative place while the strike is afoot, and they still have to go to work. This is archaic. We need to have a better solution that is for the times that we live in now.
Thank you, Eddie.
Well, as a teacher, as a former union member, as a person that was out on strike, I understand the distress on behalf of everyone. But I'll tell you what, I'm for the freedom of people to organize and to try to do the right thing. There should be no reason why a strike occurs if there is collaboration. Within that school district, that needs to be a community. That community has to take care of those children. It should never get to a strike. When we're talking about taking people's rights away, you've got to take a look at where we've come from. If it wasn't for the union process, if it wasn't for collective bargaining, there'd be no middle class. Got that? There would be no middle class if there was no collective bargaining. It's been through collective bargaining that people have had the opportunity to try to make things better for the employee, for the worker. And it's through collective bargaining that you now have safety within your systems. You now have an 8-hour workday. You now have the right for a pension. You now have the right for other benefits in health care. That was fought for by many, many people. And it started right here in northeastern Pennsylvania with Johnny Mitchell, the United Mine Workers. I don't want to see us go back where the big boys abuse the working class the way they abuse them.
Thank you. Eddie, the next question, we will start with you. What are your thoughts about increasing funding for vocational training, as in plumbers, welders, carpenters, heating, ventilation, AC, etc., to increase opportunities for our youth?
That's a definite. Right now, there's a tremendous amount of efforts being put back into schools for the technical needs. Right now, we're a shortage of qualified workers, welders, electricians, and those that are in the tech fields. LCC has a great program right now that's been put together through the efforts of the state. The state has worked very hard to work with manufacturers to find out what the needs are and provide incentive grants to the manufacturers as well as to our schools to now change the curriculum so that, you know what, a 4-year education may not be the right thing. Because there are certain vocations now where a 2-year degree from LCC through a union shop can get somebody $50,000, $60,000, $70,000 to start, certainly more than a living wage. So the education systems are beginning to change now because the industry is demanding it. We need more qualified workers out into the field, whether it's our welders, whether it's our engineers, our mechanics, our steel workers. All over the United States, they're looking for qualified people. So that's coming, and the state has been definitely putting new money into the system for grants and incentives.
Thank you. Sue?
There's no question that there is a dire need for skilled workers in Pennsylvania. There's no question. And we should model our schools after what the needs are. I thought we had guidance counselors there. I hope we still do. They should be directing kids into the path that is best for them and not forcing them into taking on an onerous college debt that they'll never be able to pay off with the degree that they get. That needs to be rethought. People who pursue the trades need to be uplifted. We can't continue to have this dynamic where we look down at people who attend vocational programs. They're earning a living, they're doing what's right, and I love my plumber and my electrician, so I understand the need for good people, and I would encourage more students to pursue it in any way possible.
Thank you. Sue, we'll start with you on this question, and it was a question from the audience as well. What are your thoughts on clean and renewable sources of energy in Pennsylvania to help the economy, provide good local jobs, and work to combat climate change, if you feel that appropriate?
I think that there has been a lot of innovation in some of these things, which is good. I think that we have to make sure that everything being done is done in a realistic way, though. We do know that some people have profited off of alternative energy with no tangible results. So we need to be careful. But on a better note, I think the technology is improving, and I would certainly support things that showed a benefit and were cost effective.
Thank you. Eddie?
We come back to the word balance again. The last thing you want to do is put your coal companies out of business. We certainly can mine coal and export it. We certainly can use our oil and our gas appropriately. But science definitely demonstrates that there are alternative sources of energy that are certainly better for the environment. That doesn't mean that we put gas companies out of business. It means that we monitor things appropriately. We all grew up here in the northeastern Pennsylvania. Most of us that are of a certain age can remember the yellow and the orange streams and rivers. You don't want that again. Water is vital to our lives. Pennsylvania is a gorgeous state, and one of the greatest resources it has is water. It also has gas. It has oil. It has coal. It has timber. It has incredible land for our food. The ag business, it's the #1 product in Pennsylvania. So it's balancing all those things. You may not even think about it, but the ag industry could totally pollute our water supply because of the fertilizers and the manure. So there has to be safeguards. The science has to be a part of the answer. Balance.
Thank you. We continue to get questions submitted to us on property tax reform. So even though we asked a question earlier, I'm going to interject just another question or two that came from the audience, and I'm going to combine them. So Eddie, we begin with you. So let me just read the questions. So if we were to replace property taxes, what other revenue sources would we use? And then the other question is, can you, the difference between a 73% property tax reduction and tax elimination. So if you want to comment on that.
Okay, so your first question was?
Well, I'll read the question as it was posed. What are your thoughts for replacing property taxes with other revenue, whether it's a percentage or total elimination? And then the second question was, what is the difference between a 73% property tax reduction and tax elimination?
So we can reduce your property taxes by balancing it out, as 76 is trying to do, with increasing your personal income tax and increasing your sales tax and expanding it. The bill that I voted for increased your personal income tax from 3.07 to 3.7. 76 goes from 3.07 to almost 4.95. The statistics demonstrate that in my district, if you would have accepted the 504, That's $950 rebate on your property taxes. That would have only increased your personal income tax by 0.7 rather than almost 2. So you can do the math yourself. If you're making $50,000, your personal income tax on that at 3% is $1,500. At 5%, it's $2,500. You increase your sales tax and expand it, you're now paying more money on all of the items that you currently use, plus 70 more items. So if we can reduce your property taxes with little hardship to the income tax and to the sales tax. To eliminate $14 billion that's suggested in 76, that's where you over a tax on the personal income tax and expand the sales incredibly. Plus that 76, you still have to pay your debt from your school districts. And out of 500 school districts in Pennsylvania, 490 have debt. So you're going to continue to pay that percentage of debt, 17 to 20%, infinitum, until that debt is paid. Reducing your property tax will work. 73% reduction as opposed to 82%. 73 we can do, that's the $950 in your pocket.
Thank you, Eddie.
Sorry.
Sue.
Let me tell you a little secret. Regardless if property taxes are eliminated or not, you're still going to have to pay the debt. They can't rip up the bonds. Just know that, okay? Don't be fooled by this argument. Let me tell you something else. Senate Bill 76 in the Senate almost passed. It was a tie. Guess who broke the tie? Democrat Lieutenant Governor Mike Stack. You got all that? I just want you to know these things. Please go to the Pennsylvania Taxpayer Cyber Coalition page. They have a calculator which will show you exactly how much money you will save or won't save if there is property tax elimination. The debts will have to be retired. Your payment will be much less, but you can't wipe debt, you can't rip bonds up. Everybody knows this, you can't do that, but it'll eventually go away. And then the people will have the power to decide whether or not they want to build a Taj Mahal school that costs $300 million after the interest is done. It's that simple.
Thank you, Sue. The next question for you, Sue, are what are your thoughts on funding for infrastructure?
Where is it would be my main thought. The roads in this area are horrendous. If we want to be the gateway to the world with the interstate system that we have, we should be doing very well. 80, 380, 84, 81, the Pennsylvania Turnpike. We should be just absolutely crushing it as a center for commerce. Our roads are disgusting in this state. That gas tax, where's it going? I don't know. Domino's Pizza has done more to pave the roads in Wilkes-Barre than some other people. Domino's Pizza, a private company, they're filling potholes. It's astonishing, isn't it? We need good infrastructure. I know that they've been working on some, but even the rate of it, PennDOT needs to be put under the microscope. We need more accountability as to what is going on all day long and who is doing some of this work that turns out to be an absolute travesty when it's done. And those micro holes up on 81, where'd they come from? Were people dropping marbles off the moon? Like, we need accountability for contractors with PennDOT.
Thank you, Sue. Eddie?
Well, I have no problem with accountability for contractors, but they have a certain amount of money, and you're right. Pennsylvania has an enormous amount of roads, far more than most of the states, believe it or not. We also went through a horrendous winter where we had extreme cold, sub-zero cold, and then a super thaw in the 50s and 60s, back to sub-zero cold, and then back to 50s and 60s. I don't know about you, but my sidewalks no longer look the way they did before this winter, nor do the cracks in my house. I'm not here to suggest that PennDOT is perfect, but I'm here to tell you they are working as fast as they can This has been a terrible weather year. It's been rain all the time. They can only do work when the sun's out. Now, I don't think you know this, but about $800 million of the PennDOT money is going to pay for the state police to police communities, counties, municipalities, boroughs, and townships that chose not to hire their own policemen. So $800 million of that is going to pay for the state police to police those areas. That's part of the funds. You had a terribly bad winter. And I'm not making excuses for PennDOT, but we've had many conversations. They're working as fast as they can to try to be able to accommodate the needs that we have. And again, there's still a limited amount of money that they use. Thank you.
Thank you. I think we have time for about 3 or 4 more questions. This is a question that was also submitted through the audience. Eddie, and we start with you. What do you think about the recent Supreme Court ruling eliminating mandatory fair share contributions for non-union members?
Well, I'll tell you this right now. I'm living the experience of being a representative, and I've seen countless bills that have been designed to eliminate unions or dismantle them. And I'm telling you this, dismantling unions means it's now you against the company you will always lose. I will fight till my last breath for fairness when it comes to that. That's a terrible thing to do. So the union fights for your wages and for your benefits and your working conditions, and you, the employee, decide you don't want to pay a union due. We used to have fair share, which means, okay, if you don't want to pay for the political aspect of a union, you would pay a lesser charge. Now they don't even have to do that. It's designed simply to dismantle the union. The less people pay in the union, the less money they have to operate, and therefore they collapse. Once the unions are gone, your rights and benefits are gone. Collective bargaining brought you all those things that you enjoy now. Retirement, pensions, health care, 8-hour workday, safe working conditions, etc., etc., etc. I'm fighting for the working class.
Thank you. Sue?
I think the Supreme Court got it right. I also want to say that I admire and respect business owners. I don't think all of the business owners that I see here in the audience are Scrooge and they're sitting in their companies every night thinking about how they can take everything away from their employees. That's a terrible perception we have of men and women who put everything that they have on the line to open doors and create jobs. We should uplift anybody that takes the risk to open a business where we live. We should applaud them. We shouldn't demonize them. I was also in a union. I was in the newspaper guild when I worked at the Citizens Voice, also known as the strike newspaper. So I know what it's like to actually be in a union as well. Don't think that I don't understand what goes on. I have respect for many, many private sector unions that people need to protect them in certain situations. Sometimes the balance has swung too far, though, and it's hurt normal people who have to come up with money to pay things like school property taxes, and they don't even have their own health care, and they have to scrounge and scrape so they can make sure the school systems stay open that offer benefits that are quite good.
Thank you, Sue. Sue, to you first then. What are your thoughts on reducing the size of the Pennsylvania legislature?
Yes.
Oh, okay, thank you. Eddie?
Let me offer you the reason why we have 203 legislators and 50 senators. In 1960, the idea was we want to make sure that your legislators were available to the public. And by having 203 representatives, we basically are in charge of representing about 62 to 65,000 people. I go to many events and people will say to me, how come we always see you at the event? We never see our senator, we never see our congressman or our federal senator. And I say because I'm responsible for 62 to 65,000 people, a state senator, 250,000 people, a U.S. congressman, about 750,000 people, and a state senator, the whole state. So as a result, the idea was to have personal contact, eyeball to eyeball, with your legislator rather than a staff member. I want to also demonstrate to you that the cost of trying to eliminate 50 members is actually minimal because of the fact that once you expand the territories, we become like the Senate. So the Senate doesn't have one office. The Senate has a much larger territory, so they may have to have 3 offices, with 3 staffing them with people for those 3 offices. And when you analyze the cost to run the Senate as opposed to the House, is pretty much even though we have 203 to 50. That is not a slight against my senator colleagues. I'm demonstrating to you it costs a great deal of money because they have 50 senators. They need more staff members in order to deal with the constituents.
Thank you. We've had a number of questions regarding the Wilkes-Barre Area School District, and I'm not certain if this is an appropriate question for this forum from the state level, but I'm welcoming both of you if you feel like you'd like to make a comment on it. Eddie, we start with you.
On the Wilkes-Barre School District?
Yes.
I've visited that school. They are working very hard. I visited that school, and I'm going to tell you something. It's not like it used to be. I taught school for 38 years, and I saw a definite change in the students that were coming to our schools. I may not have come from a lot of money, but there was nurturing and love within the families. Those children were taught certain things at home. Those children understood the kinds of things that they needed within the life skills.
Excuse me, Eddie. I'm sorry to interrupt you. I think the question, if I'm understanding it correctly, is about the consolidation of the Wilkes-Barre area schools.
Well, that word was missing when you mentioned.
I apologize.
Okay.
I apologize for that. Thank you.
I'll start over then. Okay. The consolidation is based upon the fact that Wilkes-Barre area can't afford to repair 3 high schools, to staff 3 high schools, and to maintain 3 high schools. So when you take a look at the cost of just the staffing alone, it's enormous. By having 1 high school, it's sort of like you have 1 English teacher, 1 physics teacher, instead of 3 physics teachers or 3 English teachers. I went through a jointure in Nanticoke. It's disturbing. And there's so much tradition from all the schools. And that tradition should not get lost, and it should be preserved for history. But the consolidation will allow for those children to have a far finer building to work in, updated equipment with all the best things that are there. Again, I went through that. It was the parents that had a bigger problem with it than the kids. Once the kids got in the school system and they got used to it, they loved the school, they had more kids in the school, they had more friends. By the way, all the athletic teams got a lot better. The choir got a lot better. Everybody made out very well. And it was certainly far more cost efficient than what it is with your 3 high schools.
Thank you. Sue?
I hope that everybody and their sister goes to that meeting on Friday that is being held by state mandate, by the way. The way this process has unfolded is amazing to me. Wasteful spending everywhere. Millions of dollars spent for nothing without accountability. In Scranton, the Auditor General came in to look at what they were doing. I would hope, and it's a sincere hope, that cooler heads prevail. You talk about expenses. Who's going to pay for all the busing? Why build a school on land where mining was done and risk health? Geisinger offered a free site. They said no. Look, keeping schools in neighborhoods keeps children in neighborhoods with their parents and keeps property values up. To take this risk with a population like Wilkes-Barre has that can't afford this is cooler heads need to step into this as soon as possible, because I don't know who's going to pay for this, but grab your wallets if this goes through, because you're gonna see taxes like you've never seen before in your life. If you think you're paying a lot now, you just wait.
Excuse me, sir.
Yeah. What time is that meeting on Friday?
Pardon me, please. We'd
thought it
like
was-
to.
I mean that sincerely.
Yeah.
I mean that I am here. If you need help, I'll sit afterwards. Anything like that.
Well, thank you. Let's continue with the forum, please, so we can get one or two more questions in, so we can take advantage of the time. Thank you very much. Okay, this is another question from the audience, and we start with you, Sue, I believe. What are your thoughts on providing health care for the mentally ill if they can't afford it? And what are your thoughts on forced treatment?
Well, there are many safety net services that are available for people. I would certainly recommend some in town. A Family Service Association is amazing. Community counseling does a good job. There are probably people that are working in the community to take care of people pro bono as well. I don't think that we should not treat people who are sick with anything if we can. Forced treatment, I understand where people may be coming from, but, you know, we've seen that go awry many times in our history, and I don't want to see it again. I don't want to see people forced into procedures that are inhumane, but people say they're for their own good. I'm not an advocate of that.
Thank you, Sue. Eddie?
Mental illness is a very difficult issue to deal with. Some of you may remember, we used to have mental institutions throughout Pennsylvania to deal with the severely handicapped folks that had mental problems. Dick Thornburg closed all those mental institutions, and then all of a sudden we had, street people. It's something that has to be dealt with, but again, it comes down to money, and there's never enough money for all the things that are needed throughout the state of Pennsylvania. Your health care costs right now are just outrageous. That's sucking the money out of your system, out of the whole economy. And if we were able to balance out that cost, the overcharging, there would be money for health care for the folks with mental problems. If you analyze the cost of health care today, it has not doubled or tripled, but it has quadrupled and quintupled. In the mid-90s, a quality health care plan like the Gold plan of today cost between $4,000 and $5,000. Same plan today is $20,000 to $25,000. Who can afford that? That's your raises. That's why people haven't gotten a raise, because the health industry is sucking all the money out. You balance that money out, we would be able to find the proper levels of care for people that have mental disabilities.
Thank you both. We just have enough time for our closing remarks, but before we conclude, I just wanted to give special thanks to our host, the Jewish Community Alliance of Northeastern Pennsylvania, for housing us this evening, and we do appreciate their support. I'd also like to thank the candidates for giving up time out of their busy schedule to come in and present their views to you, the audience. And thank you very much for the audience for being here today. The League of Women Voters' primary purpose is to advocate for informed involvement, thank you, in the political process. So you being here today helps us meet that goal. And also we would like to thank Scott Cannon from Service Electric for videotaping this event, and it will air tomorrow night at 8 p.m. on Service Electric Cable Channel 2. A reminder that Election Day is November 6th, and that polls are open from 7 a.m. to 8 p.m. And just a little plug for the league here. Membership is open to men and women, and if you are so interested, I believe we have a membership application or two sitting around. And now I would like the candidates to please give a 2-minute closing statement, and the first closing statement is for you, Sue.
Thank you, League of Women Voters, and thank you, Eddie. Thank you all for being here. The job of a lawmaker, the way I understand it in Harrisburg, is threefold. It's the budget, making sure that the budget is done on time and in a thoughtful and pragmatic way. It is to pass laws that are needed and necessary, and it is to help constituents navigate through the red tape of Harrisburg. If I go to Harrisburg, I promise you a couple of things. Number one is I will work very, very hard to eliminate school property taxes. Number two, I know how you live. I've been on a lot of your porches in your homes. Thank you for having me. I will not take the per diem of $191 a day to go and do a job. I absolutely think that that is reprehensible and beyond imagination. I will have the most frugal transportation allotted to me, and if I can take a 401k, I will take a 401k. I will slash the cost of operating the office here. Last year was $355,000 for Eddie's staff. That's obscene. Okay, these figures are available. I got them. I have them. And I would hope the newspapers would write about them. We need to make Harrisburg more like us and make Harrisburg less like Harrisburg. I promise you that I will do everything in my power to work extremely hard on your behalf there, because I know what it's like to struggle, and I know what it's like when you get a little bit of extra money in your pocket. It's a good thing. Thank you all for coming out.
Thank you, Sue.
Well, thank you very much again to the League, to the JCC, to everyone that's come out here today. I too will stay afterwards to discuss anything you'd like to discuss completely. There is no way that in a minute or in a minute and 30 seconds we can discuss complicated issues, whether it be health care, whether it be your property tax, whether it be living wage jobs. There's no way we discuss it in 1 minute or 1 minute and 30 seconds. That's all sound bites. I'll stay as long as it's necessary. Second of all, I'm sorry that Sue had to end with a shot at me. I don't know where you got the $350,000 from. I have 2 people that are employed in my office staff, and everything about my office is within the standards of the state. Because I am now the chairman of the Agriculture Committee, 2 people have been increased to my staff: the executive director that every chairman has, and the research analyst that every chairman has. So if you're referring to my staff in Harrisburg plus here, you may be close. I want you to know that the people that I have employed and those that I've worked with in Harrisburg work diligently on behalf of you. They work very hard every day. I want to say something else. I have colleagues on both sides of the aisle that are dedicated to your benefit. They are there to help. They work very hard, whether they're a Republican or a Democrat. They work hard for their constituents, as I do, as I have done, as I will continue to do. And as I started off with, I've told you the truth. I will stay with that truth. I've given you the facts. I'll stay at the end, and I'll meet with anybody here, and I'll explain the reason why I do what I do. But I want you to know, it's all in your hands, November 6th. The whole country's in your hands, November 6th. Thank you.
Thank you both. If we could please have a final round of applause for our candidates. Thank you very much for being here tonight. Drive safely, please.